Before we formally begin the proceedings of today's seminar, I would request Mr. Zahid Ashraf to kindly come and recite a few verses from Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر صدق الله العظيم.
Honorable Chairman, Senate of Pakistan, Honorable Members of Parliament, members from Diplomatic Corps based in Islamabad, ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, Assalamu alaikum, and a very warm good morning and welcome to all of you at this seminar on Pak-Cuba relationship organized by the Pak-Cuba Friendship Group in the Senate of Pakistan, especially under the guidance of Honorable Chairman Senate and under the convenership of Honorable Senator Mushail Sayyid Sahab. So to begin, our first speaker of today's seminar is Honorable Mushail Sayyid Sahab, who is also a very close friend of Cuba. So I will request Senator Mushail Sahab to please say a few words in his welcome remarks.
In the name of the Almighty, the Lord of all mankind. Good morning, Assalamu alaikum. Special compañero, to our compañeros and compañeras from Latin America who are here. We have a distinguished galaxy of parliamentarians, and we are very fortunate to have the chairman of the Senate of Pakistan, Senator Mia Raza Rabbani Sahab, to preside over this important memorial, the first of its kind in Pakistan and most of the Muslim world, in honor of the great revolutionary leader of the third world, Fidel Castro. And I would also like to thank the ambassador of Cuba Gabriel T.L. Capote, who is here, along with the parliamentarians and the ambassadors of Palestine, of Syria, of Brazil, of Portugal, of Greece, of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. I hope I've not missed out any other country. More of this covers. And the distinguished parliamentarians from both houses. And I can see that Dr. Shirin Mazari and Senator Javed Abbasi has left the Supreme Court to come here personally from their respective camps. So that's a very good sign that the respect for Castro unites the political parties and political leaders of Pakistan all across the political spectrum. On behalf of the Pakistan-Cuba Parliamentary Friendship Group, it is my great privilege and pleasure to welcome all of you. We are honoring a personality who not only represents the island of Cuba, 11 million people. 90 miles how far from Florida? 90 miles from the mighty United States of America. From the mighty United States of America, a small island. And Fidel Castro, when he led the Popular Revolution, which triumphed in January 1959, 11 United States presidents tried to topple Castro, tried to destabilize the Cuban Revolution, and tried to assassinate Fidel Castro. He has the record of being the victim of CIA attempted assassinations for about 600 different plots. And by the grace of Almighty, he escaped unscathed. And when there was the famous 1961 invasion in what is called the Bay of Pigs, led by exiles, Cuban exiles, financed and sponsored by the CIA, Castro was sitting in a Cuban camp, himself in his battle fatigues, to face the imperialist onslaught. So Castro, and his brother also, I would say, Raul Castro, who is president of the Republic of Cuba, and whom, inshallah, we will have the privilege and honor of meeting when a delegation of the Senate, led by the chairman of Pakistan, Mr. Raza Rabbani, goes to Cuba on 24th through 28th of February. I'm announcing this for your information, Ambassador. So we will have the privilege of meeting him also. So this would be actually a journey of learning. The experience of the Cuban Revolution is unique. It is unique because Castro has been a role model in 3 different areas in the revolution that he successfully led in the 20th century. We had the Russian Revolution, which shook up Europe and the world. We had the Chinese Revolution, which shook up Asia. We had the Islamic Revolution in Iran, which shook up the Muslim world. And we had the Cuban Revolution, which shook up Latin America. Because that took place in America's own backyard. And 3 areas are extremely important. And I know more about Cuba because I used to be, as a young student, I used to be listening to Radio Havana, English service. And I was a subscriber to the weekly English publication called Grandma. So I've been following it very closely. And then my wife, Dr. Dushka, 2 years ago went to Cuba, and she wrote a series of 6 articles on her visit to Cuba, which were published in the Daily Times and the European. So, number 1, his independent foreign policy, where he resisted foreign domination, hegemony, intervention, and interference. So this shows that size does not equal strength. He led with ideas, he led with issues, he inspired not only the Cuban people, but millions all over the world, which includes the illustrious chairman of the Senate, from the youth onwards, and myself and others. I can see Shirin Mazari also nodding, because she's a former leftist also. And his clear enunciation of the Cuban national interest, through 11 successive American presidential administrations, showed a consistency and a commitment to the people he led. And ultimately, it was in 17th of December 2014, that President Barack Hussein Obama and Raul Castro signed that agreement. And then Mr. Obama also visited personally Cuba. So that's number one. His foreign policy, his defiance, his defense of the Cuban national interest in a very successful manner. The second one is the role model in health. Cuba is one of the first countries in the third world to provide universal health care for all its 11 million citizens. In a unique example, which is rare in any third world country. And it is one of the best medical systems in the world, and thanks to Cuban support, 1,200 Pakistani doctors have now been trained in Cuba. They give scholarships. This is the kind of support they give. The third area is education. In most third world countries, the issues are poverty alleviation, lack of priorities, and lack of welfare of the masses, the common man, the common person, the people as we call them, the awam as we call them. And the two key areas are health and education. He solved that problem. And universal education, mass literacy campaign. So it has been an amazing transformation of a small country, a revolutionary transformation. And that's why Castro called it, that he described what is a revolution. A revolution is a struggle to death between the past and the future. And that is what he made that. The future of Cuba was different than its past. And those of you who are fans of movies, in the movie called The Godfather, you could see there are scenes of the old Havana, gambling, oligarchs, multinationals, all that changed. Because the sovereignty of Cuba was restored to its people by the revolution. So, Excellency Gabriel Kiel Capote, we are very happy to have you here, sir, and to have this special function to honor a great leader who was also a friend of Pakistan. Because during the earthquake, he gave excellent support, family support, where your deputy foreign minister, now with the foreign minister, was personally there for 3 months supervising. And I visited your mobile hospital in Alai. There were Cuban doctors, Cuban nurses, and not only that, they donated all the equipment when they left. And the equipment was worth, at that time, $25 million. So, sir, we are very grateful to Cuba, grateful to the Cuban people, the government, for your support, and we are gathered here today to honor and pay homage to one of the greatest leaders of the 20th and the 21st century, Fidel Castro. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your sentiments for Excellency Fidel Castro. May I now request Mr. John Khurshid Saab, he is representing Pak Cuba Social Group, to please come forward and say a few words in tribute to.
May I just remind the speakers that this is a short memorial meeting, so the speeches should be very specific, 3 minutes each, and no long-winded comments. Thank you. To you also.
Mr. Chairman Senate, Mr. Fazal Chief Guest of this distinguished gathering, Mr. Jackson Sayyid Saab, and the worthy and distinguished guest, Mr. Gabriel J. Capote, the ambassador of Cuba. First of all, I am very thankful to Mr. Jackson Sayyid, who invited me on behalf of Pak Cuba Social Forum to represent him this forum and to show his solidarity with Cuban people. The Pak Cuba Social Forum was established 2 years ago, and since then we are regularly holding meetings and seminars in collaboration with Mr. whether they visit an informal ambassador. Now, it's immense pleasure for me to express my feelings and my hopeful feelings and about the charismatic leader, the great Fidel Castro. He was not only a great philosopher and revolutionary, but he was an ideological godfather of the Cuban nation. I would like to take this opportunity to recognize and honor Fidel Castro's tireless activities and liberation for the Cuban people and building a sovereign and prosperous Cuba. No doubt, Cuba is a small country, but at the same time, Cuba is progressing day by day, and that's why Cuban people live with dignity and honor. All of this is due to the collective organization of the Cuban people under the leadership of great Fidel Castro. As my speaker, the chief guest, Mr. Chairman said, Cuba has been sending mission and doctors to provide free healthcare facilities to the poorest countries all over the world. But when we talk about Pakistan, Pakistan is not as poor as the other countries. But at the time of our, the Cuban government sent their specialized doctors and so many field hospitals and other equipments to the Pakistani government and Pakistani people in the time of earthquake. And all of us know that all the settled field hospitals were gifted to the Pakistani people when they left the Pakistan. Now, I would like to further express my feelings and deepest grief on the departure of greatest leader, Mr. Fidel Castro. The legacy of Fidel Castro will remember and will empower generations to come. And to conclude my remarks, I must say, long live Cuba, viva Cuba. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John, sir. May I now request Honorable Fakhr Imam Shah Saab, former Speaker of the National Assembly of Pakistan, to please come forward and say a few words.
The Honorable Chairman Senate of Pakistan, the Honorable Senator Syed Sahab, Honorable Ambassadors, Honorable Parliamentarians, Honorable Citizens, Assalamu Alaikum. I think today is the memorial meeting for an icon, whom I think we should term as one of the leading lights that the Third World has produced in the last 200 years. We in Pakistan are still struggling, developing polity, a developing economy, tragically, after 70 years of our existence, and constantly looking outside for ways and means of how we can become a developed polity and a developed economy. 11 million people in Cuba today can look upon themselves as proud, dignified, and honorable citizens because of the quality of leadership which was given out by the Honorable Fidel Castro. Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah was a towering figure for Pakistan, an icon in his own right. But since then, the greater Pakistan, East and West, we are now West Pakistan, state of Pakistan. We, the people of Pakistan and the citizens of Pakistan, are constantly struggling to meet the norms and values of a so-called Islamic social society. We are still engrossed in methodologies of governance and statecraft which have not reached the heights that the Honorable Mr. Jinnah said we should reach. Fidel Castro today is being remembered globally because, as Mushahid Saab said, the might of a superpower could not diminish what citizens of Cuba, why were they inspired by Castro? Because Castro lived his life. He lived his life in a way that every Cuban respected and feels proud of. I think that is the essence to me of a living, dynamic person who one can look upon and follow. That is the leadership which inspired. He came through the ideology of a Marx and Lenin. China came through the ideology of a Mao. Iran of Khomeini. Pakistan has the ideology of Mr. Jinnah. How many of us, when we go back home and look upon ourselves as the people, the citizens of Pakistan, the state of Pakistan, to me, Fidel Castro symbolizes as perhaps the greatest Latin American leader. Americans don't recognize him because they could not cower and put the fear in him. He stood up, faced them eyeball to eyeball. The Bay of Pigs invasion showed 13 days of negotiation. Khrushchev came in and said, I'll take away the missiles. And quietly said, you remove the missiles from Turkey. That was the standoff. And today, we honor Castro in Pakistan, 200 million Pakistanis. I don't know how many of us are there. But one other thing, sir, other than literacy and health, and they send doctors worldwide wherever they are required, not just Pakistan. We cannot send doctors because we haven't given them the platform to create the quantum of doctors. And we have failed to evolve a population growth strategy which Castro did. And with these words, I think that we should commend him as a role model for the rest of us.
Thank you, Excellency, for sharing your thoughts. May I now request Dr. Shirin Mazari, who is a member of National Assembly as well as Director General of Strategic Studies Institute of Islamabad. Please come.
I have promised Dr. Shirin that if she makes a good speech, she may join the entourage of the Chairman Senate to Cuba.
Excellency, Chairman Senate, Excellency, the Ambassador of Cuba, and Excellency Mushahid Hussain Sayyid, I'm very grateful you've given me this opportunity. Cuba is a country that I have admired since I was a young person, and Castro has always been an inspiration. The thing that I remember most is, of course, his speech, "History will absolve me," when in 1953, 26 July, they attacked the barricades in Moncada in Cuba, which was the beginning actually of the revolution, and that's why the Cuban Revolution was known as the 26 July movement. And initially it failed, and he was tried. And in his trial he said, "Condemn me, it does not matter." I think I haven't got the words present, but the words that are his exactly are, "History will absolve me." History has not only absolved him, history has placed him on an iconic pedestal, which is what he deserved. Because he liberated Cuba. I mean, I look at Fidel Castro's revolution with envy as a Pakistani. Here was a man and here was a movement that defied the United States. There were the Cubans who got their freedom from Spain, only to find imperialist United States bringing in troops and demanding subservience. Which country could tolerate what the Americans did to Cuba? The Platt Amendment, which they added to the Cuban Constitution, whereby Cuba was forced that they had to admit that America America has the right to intervene in Cuba's internal affairs, in Cuba's foreign policy. No foreign policy could be made without approval from the United States. And part of the Platt Amendment, I think it's Article 7, also stated that in order to supposedly preserve Cuban independence, Cuba must sell or lease coaling stations and land to the United States of America, which is why you have that horrible black spot, Guantanamo Bay, existing even today on Cuba, on part of the island. And here was Castro, who then went into exile, came back in the Glamour, the ship after which the newspaper was named, and took on the imperialist US and the puppet regime of Batista that the US backed. And on 1st January 1959, the glorious revolution of Cuba succeeded, and despite the Bay of Pigs in 1961, despite numerous assassination attempts, Cuba has gone from strength to strength. I don't want to mention the services of Cuba to the world in terms of health and education that Mushayed has already mentioned, but Cuba's contribution to the world is more than that. Cuba inspired freedom movements across the globe, especially in the continent of Africa, not just by words. There is a romanticism also, of course, which has been attached to all young revolutionaries across and Namibia, where the Cubans sent their troops. Here was a small country, so close to America, defying America and defying the colonialists across the globe and succeeding. And that, I think, is Castro's greatest legacy, that he spoke not only for the Cuban people, his thoughts and his deeds represented not just the words of the Cuban people, but also of oppressed people, people seeking independence in the true sense of the word independence, people struggling against colonial and imperialist forces. And he represents them, his thoughts represent them, his deeds represent them. And I speak of Castro in Cuba with envy, because as a Pakistani, I wish that we would have the same courage to stand up to imperialist forces that even today dictate to us, even though we call ourselves an independent nation. So long live Castro's heritage, his legacy, and may the Pakistani nation at some stage find its own Castro and begin our own revolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. May I now request Honorable Senator Prasya Patel Saab, who is a human rights champion and former president of the Pakistan Human Rights Council.
Honorable Chairman Senate, Honorable Senator Mushayed Senate, Excellency Ambassador of Cuba, Honorable Parliamentarians, diplomats, ladies and gentlemen, it's really an honor for me to be here today and speak about the legacy of Fidel Castro. Actually, I had the honor of visiting Cuba in 1984, October 1984. And it was a time when, in 83, I think, it was under Reagan that there was very serious polarization between socialist camp and the Western capitalist countries. And there was a real threat of physical clash, although the clash was not supposed to be between the Soviet Union and the United States as such. But there was real threat under Reagan that the United States will invade certain countries in Latin America, particularly Nicaragua and Cuba. And I remember when I visited Cuba in 1984, there was a very, very popular campaign of people's struggle against imperialist invasion. And I saw how Cuban people were mobilized. Then I understood, and I had the opportunity to see Moncada barracks and other places where the first uprising had taken place and where Cuba was put on, Fidel Castro was put on trial. So I understood that spirit by visiting Cuba at that time. But I think the Bay of Pigs invasion was the first effort at a regime change, which unfortunately was repeated later on in many other countries. But it was the determination of Cuban people and the leadership of Fidel Castro that this plan did not succeed in Cuba. Unfortunately, it succeeded in some other places and created a mess in so many other countries. I think we must remember that the struggle of Fidel Castro and other revolutionaries in the 20th century is very important for the future of mankind, because we know that in 19th century there was Paris Commune. For 70 days, the proletariat of Paris took over power in parts of Paris, and it survived for 70 days. And in 20th century, there was October Revolution, which survived more than 70 years. I had the honor of participating in the 70th anniversary of the Soviet Union in 1987 in Moscow, where I had the honor of meeting Fidel Castro, because Afghan President, my esteemed friend, the then Afghan President Dr. Najibullah, introduced me to him. And I remember Dr. Najibullah told him that, well, as a young student of medicine, he said, I was inspired by Che Guevara, and I thought I can also take part in revolutions. So he said, now we are looking for Cubans, and Fidel Castro told him that Cubans will always be with you, and you can always depend on Cuba. So I think this is very important, because this struggle of humanity against exploitation is something that was there and that will be there. Those who say that after the collapse of social system in East Europe, struggle for social justice has evaporated, they are mistaken. I think as long as there is oppression, exploitation, the struggle will continue. It will take new shapes. And it's very important that we have universal ideas of the salvation of mankind. Because if we don't have that, otherwise these struggles will degenerate into racial struggles, communal struggles, sectarian struggles. That's why it's very important to have the icons like Fidel Castro, Che Guevara, and other revolutionaries who inspire mankind. Their struggle, the inspiration of their struggle crossed the mighty Atlantic and spread in the entire world. It's very important to have such universal ideas for the future of mankind. I think today his legacy is very relevant when there is, we see the signs of new alignment in the world. The multipolarity is, I think, going into other directions, and we see the rise of powers in Asia, but particularly the rise of Asia is a very important phenomenon. But I think at this stage, we have to look for international solidarity, a struggle that can bind the struggles of all people. We in Pakistan have experienced that whenever we had a working class struggle or a democratic struggle on country basis that sort of united our people. There was struggle in Balochistan. It was supported by the working class of Punjab and other provinces. Unfortunately, in recent years, we haven't seen such unity in the ranks of democratic forces and progressive forces. But I think it's very important for us as a country to see the example of Cuba. And I hope that in coming days, coming years, we will also find the path of salvation. And I believe that the Cuban Revolution will remain relevant, not only for people of Cuba, but also I think for people of the world and everywhere, people who are struggling against domination, imperialist domination. I remember when we used to talk about US imperialism, we were told by people in Cuba, they said, no, it's North American imperialism because America belongs to American people and they are not imperialists. They are in solidarity with the rest of people of Earth. So I think it's a very important occasion to think about the solidarity of the people around the world. And I will just say that long live Cuban Revolution, long live legacy of Fidel Castro, and long live friendship between people of Pakistan and Cuba. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite another friend of Pakistan and Latin America, as well as Pakistan, Cuba, one of our senator who has also lived in that part for quite some time. Honorable Senator Shibli Farah Saab may kindly come and pay his tribute to Honorable Fidel Castro.
And may we request him to make a speech in Spanish, please?
Well, I'm going to do that. Presidente de Senado, señor embajador Capote, senador Moshayed Hussein, diplomáticos, amigos y amigos parlamentarios, damas y caballeros. Entiendo, señor embajador, que no tiene mucho sentido hablar en un idioma que la mayoría de la gente no entiende, pero eso es con mucho afecto y con mucha nostalgia que he decidido de hablar en español y aprovechar de esta oportunidad que me brindó el señor Moshayed Hussein. Es un honor también, señor embajador, que aquí estamos reunidos para extender un homenaje a una gran personalidad que es Fidel Castro, comandante Fidel Castro, que creo que después de un gran líder como Simón Bolívar, en Latinoamérica he tenido un líder como Fidel Castro. Nosotros también aquí estamos, Fidel Castro no es solamente un líder de Cuba, sino de todo el mundo, como han dicho varios participantes en sus discursos, que fue un líder que inspiró muchas generaciones y también enseñó cómo un pueblo tan pobre como Cuba es y tan pequeño como Cuba es, vivir con honor, con dignidad y con mucho respeto. También aquí aprovecho de extender mi gratitud, de agradecer al pueblo cubano y el gobierno cubano por la cooperación y por la ayuda que nos brindó durante nuestro terremoto, y también las becas que han ofrecido a nuestros jóvenes para estudiar medicina en Cuba. Y también espero que esta relación entre Cuba y Pakistán va a crecer, porque tenemos muchas cosas comunes y va a venir un tiempo muy pronto que la gente de Cuba y Pakistán van a entender uno a otro mucho más y la relación nuestra va a crecer. Y pues aquí al final de mi discurso, como no he hablado español en tanto tiempo, mi vocabulario y mi gramática no me ayuda para expresarme más, pero con pocas palabras lo agradezco mucho viva Cuba y viva Pakistán. Gracias.
Thank you, Senator. It was on your request, so that's why I'm very grateful. So before I invite our next speaker for today, let me proudly also share, Excellency, that I was based at America's desk in 2003 and 4 at Ministry of Foreign Affairs once we opened our mission in Havana for the first time in 2004. So our next speaker today is Dr. Jamal Nasser, who is graduated from Cuba in the medical field. I'd like him to please come forward and share his experience.
Assalamu alaikum, buenas tardes, good afternoon. Thank you, sir, very much. You have always been very supportive to us. I'm one of the 900 plus doctors who graduated from Cuba. So in somehow we directly share a relation with Comandante Fidel Castro, because it was directly his idea to offer 1,000 scholarships to Pakistani students. Recently we graduated and we came back almost 900 plus to Cuba and are working in different parts of the country. I'm going to share some of my experience of the 7 years in Cuba. So technically, I will talk about the masterpiece of Fidel Castro, Comandante Fidel Castro, and that is Republic of Cuba. I'm not going to say that Cuba is a very perfect country, but Cuba is a very incredible country. Cuba has done a lot under the guidance of Comandante Fidel Castro. After the revolution till now, Cuba has reduced its infant mortality rate from 42% to 4%. Cuba has shared some 30,000 doctors collaborated in 68 countries of the world and completed 600,000 missions throughout the world. Likewise, Cuba is the only Latin American country without infant malnutrition. This is the Cuba under the Fidel Castro, and where we spent our 7 years. And that's why I never miss the opportunity to say thanks to the embassy of Cuba and the people of Cuba and to the Fidel Castro that he offered us the scholarships and the help that they had done during the earthquake time. Fidel was a very great leader. In fact, a giant, a man of ideas, a man of action. I'm going to sir, give me the permission to say a few verses from a very famous poem in Spanish that I'm going to dedicate to the Fidel Castro. And it says that no voy a nombrar a Oriente, no voy a nombrar la sierra, no voy a nombrar la guerra, pienso la luz del frente. No voy a nombrar la frente tiene un cordel, la frente para el laurel, la frente del plomo y Cuba. Voy a nombrar toda Cuba, voy a nombrar Fidel. Gracias Fidel, viva Cuba, viva Pakistan.
Thank you, Dr. Nasser. May I now request Honorable His Excellency Ambassador Gabriel Capode to please come forward and speak.
Good afternoon. Excellency Mian Rasa Rawani, Senate of Pakistan. Honorable Hussain, Convener of Pakistan Cuba Parliamentary Fellowship. Excellencies, Honorable Senator, and dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank you for organizing this memorial seminar in honor of the historic leader of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro Ruz, and to point out that Cuba and Pakistan are two friendly countries whose friendship is our duty to strengthen every day. Upon hearing the sad news of the Commander-in-Chief's demise, the shock was immense. I could not assimilate that he would abandon us when we still needed him. I had the privilege of seeing him on many occasions, and I could always verify his greatness as a human being and as a revolutionary leader. It's not easy to talk about Fidel in the past. Cubans always see him in the present. Fidel still alive within his example, always driving in the daily life of the Cuban people. He lived with his example because there is no doubt that the example of Fidel has always been an encouragement for Cuban people. The leader of the Cuban Revolution and founder of the first socialist state in America devoted his whole life to solidarity and led a socialist revolution which became a symbol of the anti-colonial, anti-apartheid, and anti-imperialist struggle for the emancipation and dignity of the people, and thereby achieved recognition of the entire world. Fidel changed the world against the most powerful empire in history. especially in Latin America, Africa, Third World in general, contributed decisively to the anti-imperialist and anti-colonial struggles. It means that a better world is possible from humanism, solidarity, ethics, and justice. The death of Fidel calls us today to review his legacy, and I am comforted by the fact that Cuba's new generation have committed themselves to keeping alive the legacy of the Commander-in-Chief, and they are willing to maintain the achievement of our revolution. For 9 days, the Cubans pressed their mourning and signed the oath to continue consolidating the concept of revolution expounded by Fidel Castro in 2000. And I cite, revolution is a sense of historical moment, is to change everything that must be changed, is to emancipate ourselves by ourselves, and is our own effort, is to defend values in which it is believed, and the price of any sacrifice. Is a deep conviction that there is no force in the world capable of crushing the force of truth and ideas. It is to fight for our dreams of justice for Cuba and for the world, which is the basis of our patriotism, our socialism, and our internationalism. Fidel was a true friend of the Pakistan people, and he was the architect of the solidarity aid sent to Pakistan at the time when these people faced very painful moments by the terrible earthquake of 2005. My commitment in Pakistan is to strengthen this friendship every day. I do not wish to conclude without first citing what he said at that time. We are very grateful to the people and government of Pakistan who gave us the opportunity to offer our solidarity to the people of Pakistan during the sad tragedy of the earthquake of the 8th of October 2005. He also said, to be internationalist is to pay off our own debt to humanity. Who is not able to fight for others will never be sufficiently able to fight for himself. Hasta la victoria siempre, Fidel. I thank all of you for your presence and friendship. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. So before I invite Honorable Chairman Senate to say a few words, I would like to thank on behalf of the Senate of Pakistan. Special thanks to Executive Director of Pakistan Institute of Parliamentary Services, PIPS, for giving us this venue to host the event, and Honorable Senator Mushair Hussain Sayyid as convener of Pak Friendship Group, Pak-Cuba Friendship Group. We hope the parliamentary relations look further with these kind of hosting these events, and especially Honorable Chairman Senate for approving as the President of Pak-Cuba Friendship Group to host this seminar and pay homage to Excellency Fidel Castro. So may I request Honorable Chairman Senate to finally conclude the session and say a few words.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Senator Mushair Hussain Sayyid, Chairman of the Pak-Cuba Friendship Group in the Senate of Pakistan, the Honorable Ambassador of Cuba, the Executive Director, Mr. Zafar of PIPS, the former Speaker of the National Assembly,
Imam Sahab, the Honorable Senator of Russia, Hatak, the Honorable Senator Shivli Raz, the Honorable Member of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, and excellencies, let me first of all take this opportunity of congratulating Mr. Mushayid Hussain Sayyid for having conceived this idea of holding a memorial for Fidel Castro. I think this is perhaps the first memorial which is being held in Pakistan in his honor, and perhaps it is also, if not the first, then one of the few that have been held or are being held in the Muslim world for Fidel Castro. At this moment, I can understand the grief that is being experienced by the people of Cuba, because they have not only lost a leader, but they have lost a father, a friend, and a comrade. And therefore, we in Pakistan feel their pain. And at the same time, I think it would be appropriate for us to advise our brothers and sisters in Cuba to follow what the Chinese say at moments like this, of turning grief into strength. Because they would require that strength in the days ahead. They would require that same commitment in the days ahead. And let me also take this opportunity of assuring that the poor and struggling, oppressed and suppressed people of Pakistan will always stand by their comrades in Cuba. Because we believe that Comrade Fidel Castro was perhaps the last of the legacy of that long train of leadership which changed this world. It was the leadership of people like Sakarni. It was the leadership of people like Boumediene. It was the leadership of people like Mao Zedong. The leadership of people like Chu Enlai. A leadership that knew the aspirations of the people. A leadership which led from the front. A leadership that was committed to principles. A leadership that was committed to an ideology. An ideology that changed the world. And what we find as a common thread running between this leadership is the fact that all of these leaderships, whether it was Nasser, whether it was Boumediene, whether it was Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, the common thread running through all of these leaderships was that they were all destabilized at the hands of imperialism. They were destabilized at the hands of American imperialism for the basic fact that they represented the hopes and aspirations of their people. That they believed against accepting superpower hegemony. That they believed that the national interests of their own people were paramount. And that they did not want to become a part and parcel of an international conspiracy of suppression and oppression of the downtrodden people. Of a fact that they did not want their resources to be exploited by the imperialists. Because we had seen one people, we had seen one period, when as colonial powers, our natural resources had been exploited. And now we were going to witness, or are witnessing even today, a new phenomenon, where our resources are again being exploited and are being taken away from us by the imperialist powers, by the Western powers, in either the shape of aid, the profits that are made in Pakistan, the profits that are made in Asia, are taken away to Western capitals. So this was the common thread. And Fidel Castro taught us that as a Marxist-Leninist, what were the ingredients of the struggle? What were the ingredients of how to protect national interests? Of how to look into the eyes of a superpower, despite the fact of your size. And I fail to understand that while we shy away today from remembering such a man, because he represents the thought, the aspirations of all people who are struggling, who are oppressed and suppressed throughout the world, be it Asia, be it Europe, or be it the Americas. But the inherent fear of not Castro, the fear of what Castro represents, the fear of the people. That if the people of the world, if the downtrodden people of the world become aware of their rights, learn to stand up, have self-respect, then the legacy of colonialism and the power of imperialism will wither away and will become the sun which sets and not the sun that rises. And therefore, I do not subscribe at all to the fact that has been propounded, that the ideology of Marxism and Leninism of the left is on the decline. I would go along with what Senator Mushahid Hussain Sayyid said, that it would take a new shape. But I think that even if you look at it today, if you look at it in the context of Europe, where you have white racism emerging as a new force, yet you have countries where left-oriented parties and socialist parties have emerged and formed governments. And if you look at it in Pakistan's context, I think that even in Pakistan's context, the only paradigm shift that one can hope for, the only counter-narrative that one can look for against terrorism is an enlightened Pakistan, is a progressive Pakistan, is a Pakistan that was envisaged by the Qaid-e-Azam, that was spelled out in his speech of August 1947, in which there was to be no sectarianism, in which Pakistan's citizens were to be equal, in which the application of the law and the constitution was to apply equally to all. But unfortunately, what we witness today in Pakistan is that there are 5 applications of the law. Depending on the class to which you belong, the law will apply to you accordingly. The application of law, as in terms of the Constitution, is perhaps something which is not known to us. But nonetheless, I believe that the lessons that need to be learned from the struggle of Fidel Castro are: number 1, resistance against superpower hegemony. Number 2, keeping our national interests supreme. And number 3, the welfare of the toiling masses of our country. I think these are basically the 3, according to me, principles that enunciate from Castro's struggle. I would once again express my deep gratitude and thanks to Mr. Musharraf Hussain for having given us all this opportunity to be present here today at this memorial and in our humble manner pay tribute to perhaps one of the greatest icons that this world has seen or will see. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Once again, I would like to express our thanks to all our speakers of today's seminar. So with this, we come to an end to the seminar, and there's an arrangement of tea by PIPS for all of us outside and on the second floor. Thank you.